Welcome to Facts That Shape the World. Have you ever wondered how we can, well, peek inside the human brain and observe its inner workings? Today, we're taking a deep dive into the incredible story of Hans Berger. He's the pioneer who invented the electroencephalogram, maybe better known as the EEG. Our mission here is to unpack the really surprising personal inspiration behind his huge discovery, the challenging path he navigated, and the profound impact this invention has had on medicine, science, even our future. And here's where it gets fascinating. His initial spark actually came from this strange personal experience, something he thought was telepathy. Okay, let's unpack that. Tell us about Hans Berger's early life and, that pivotal incident that really set him on this path.
Right, it's quite a story. So when he was 19, serving in the cavalry, Berger had this really severe accident. He fell from his horse, almost got crushed, pretty serious. And that very same night, his sister, who was miles and miles away, she suddenly had this intense feeling, this premonition. She got so worried, she urged their father to check on him immediately.
Miles away.
Yeah. And this experience, it just deeply impressed Berger. He actually interpreted it as spontaneous telepathy.
So that seemingly unscientific, almost mystical experience propelled him into, well, rigorous science. That seems like quite a leap.
Exactly. It sparked this lifelong obsession, really.
Yeah.
He wanted to find the physical basis for thoughts.
Yeah.
And yes, even potentially for this kind of mental communication he thought he'd experience. So he switched fields. He went from mathematics to medicine and then specialized in psychiatry and neurology. He became convinced that mental processes must have some kind of measurable physical signs in the brain. He was really driven, to understand the correlation between objective brain activity and subjective psychic phenomena. This was also an era, remember, where things like radio were emerging, so the idea of unseen waves wasn't completely alien, even if applying it to the brain was radical.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. How did he actually do it? How did he translate that drive into a method? What was that first moment like when he finally sort of heard the brain?
Well, he was incredibly cautious, very methodical. The date was July 6, 1924. It happened during a brain tumor surgery. He carefully placed electrodes directly onto the patient's exposed brain surface.
Right onto the cortex itself.
Directly. And he connected these to a very sensitive device for the time, an Edelman string galvanometer. It was designed to pick up tiny electrical currents. And then he saw it, an undulating line on the recording. That was it. The very first recorded evidence of electrical waves coming from a living human brain.
That's incredible. Just incredible. But okay, the next step is huge. Doing it without opening someone's skull, how did he manage that?
Yeah, that was the real challenge. It took him years, actually.
Yeah.
Years of meticulous work of refining his technique. First, he tried wires placed just under the scalp. Still invasive, but less so.
Yeah.
Then he moved to using silver foil electrodes placed right on the scalp. Non-invasive. He also had to iterate through different instruments. He needed something sensitive enough. Eventually, he found a Siemens galvanometer that worked. And get this, he even had to invent a photographic method to actually record the tiny signals because continuous ink recording wasn't really up to the task yet.
Wow. So much innovation just to capture the signal. What did he actually see then with this scalp recording?
He saw rhythmic electrical oscillations, patterns. And crucially, he identified this regular activity, humming along at about 10 cycles per second. It was most prominent when his subjects were relaxed with their eyes closed. He named these alpha waves. We sometimes call it the Berger wave now.
The alpha state, right. We still talk about that.
Exactly. And he also noted that if the subjects opened their eyes or if they started thinking actively about something, these alpha waves disappeared. They were replaced by faster, choppier waves he called beta waves, linked to alertness and active mental effort.
So he'd found distinct brain rhythms tied to mental states.
Yes, the very first ones ever described in humans. But even though he made this breakthrough in 24, he was incredibly self-critical. He spent another 5 years just repeating the experiments, making absolutely sure the signals were real, not just muscle twitches or electrical noise. Only then, in 1929, did he finally publish, officially announcing his discovery and coining the term electroencephalogram, EEG.
So 5 years of validation before going public. But what happened then? Was he instantly celebrated? Did the scientific community embrace it?
Not really. Not at all, actually. In Germany, his initial findings were met with a lot of skepticism, even mockery. People often dismissed him as an eccentric, maybe a crank. They doubted the signals were real or maybe just artifacts.
Artifacts, like
Oh,
muscle movements or something.
exactly. Or maybe electrical interference. It took nearly another 5 years for things to start changing.
That's a long time waiting for recognition. What finally turned the tide?
The big turning point came in 1934. Two prominent British physiologists, Edgar Douglas Adrian, who was already a Nobel laureate, and B.C. Matthews, they decided to try and replicate Berger's experiments.
And they succeeded?
They did. They confirmed his findings. Adrian, who had apparently been quite skeptical himself initially, became a major champion of the technique. He really helped spread the word globally. So by the late 1930s, the EEG was finally gaining wide recognition. Berger was even nominated for a Nobel Prize himself. Tragically, World War II broke out, and it never happened for him.
That is tragic, but it raises the big question. What did the EEG actually allow us to do that we couldn't before? What's its real legacy, its impact?
Oh, the impact is just immeasurable. I mean, think about medicine, especially neurology. It completely revolutionized the diagnosis of disorders like epilepsy. Before the EEG, doctors were mostly relying on patient descriptions, subjective accounts. It was difficult. The EEG gave them the first objective window into seizure activity. They could actually see the abnormal electrical patterns. It turned diagnosis from, guesswork into something measurable. A huge leap.
That alone is massive. What about research?
In research, it opened up whole new fields, studying sleep cycles, for instance. The discovery of REM sleep wouldn't have happened without EEG, and it basically launched cognitive neuroscience. It gave us a tool to objectively measure how the brain responds to stimuli, understanding attention, perception, memory. It all got a massive boost.
How about today? Is it still central?
Absolutely. Its applications are vast. It's used routinely to monitor brain function during surgery, for example, and maybe most excitingly, it's the foundation for brain-computer interfaces, BCIs.
Right, controlling things with your mind.
Exactly. You have individuals, maybe paralyzed, who can now control a computer cursor or even a robotic limb, just using their thoughts interpreted through EEG signals. It's incredible.
So it all circles back in a way. From this deeply personal, maybe almost mystical experience with his sister,
Yeah.
Hans Berger gives us this concrete scientific window into the brain. He never proved telepathy, of course.
No, he didn't.
But ironically, his invention, the EEG, has brought us closer than ever to a kind of, technological telepathy, hasn't it?
That's a fascinating way to put it, yeah.
We now have algorithms that can interpret these brain signals. They allow communication between brains and machines. And there's even research into communication between two human brains, linked through digital interfaces using EEG.
It's heading in directions Berger might never have imagined.
Exactly. So the final thought for you to ponder: what possibilities does that open up for the future of how we communicate, how we interact, maybe even how we think? It's quite something to consider.